Question: do you have a bug out bag? And if you answered yes to that, then the next question would be, do you really need it? I may surprise you when I'll say, probably not. But it's not as simple as that. I'm Shane from Modern Warrior Project, and I ask you to join me on this video where I'm going to discuss a bug out bag as well as an inch bag and the differences between the two. And then I'll dive into why I said you probably don't need it. Obviously, I'm a prepper, so there's more to it than just me saying let's just forego prepping. So first off, let's start with terminology. What is a bug out bag? A bug out bag, in its most accepted definition and its shortest and basic of definitions, is a simple bag that you can quickly grab to evacuate, typically from your house, to the next place of safety and security. And this bag should be equipped with about a minimum of 72 hours of supplies to meet your basic survival needs. It's pretty simple and a pretty basic thing. When I served in the military, every one of us, and I was in special operations, but I presume, I'm not sure, but I would assume that the entire military probably had a similar thing. We had an overnight bag. So everywhere we went, whether it was training or on a mission, that bag came with us, and guess what? It was a bug out bag. It's exactly what it was. It had base layer clothing in there. It had some MREs and some other snacks, survival kit, first aid, just some of the basic needs. And it allowed us, one, if we were ever isolated or somehow stranded, it allowed us those needs. And additionally, just a lot of times when you're hopping from one place to the next, you may get stuck. You know, it might not be in the middle of the woods, but you're stuck. So you're not without everything you have. You have some basic supplies on you. That's what a bug out bag is. Now let's talk about an inch bag. An inch bag has come into popular term in more modern day history. I don't know exactly when it came about, but it stands for INCH, I'm Never Coming Home bag. This is essentially a bug out bag plus. It's like a bug out bag on steroids. It has all the same things that your basic bug out bag would have, but then it's plussed up with the assumption that I'm not going to be able to come back. This might not be a 72-hour venture out, whether I'm going to my bug out location or I just don't have a location I'm going to. So for me, this is my inch bag slash bug out bag. I don't believe in having both, and I'll explain that a little more in terms. But so it has a lot of stuff in there. It weighs in at 32 pounds. That's with my water in there. So it's not extremely heavy, but I have all the same stuff you would have in a bug out bag, and then I have more stuff. So what is that more stuff? A lot of that's going to depend on your particular skill sets, experience, and the scenarios that you prep for or consider in your prepping. So with me, I have lock picking stuff, I have evasion, I have some basic disguise stuff in there, I have some proactive type of equipment on the tactical side of things. And then, of course, I have all the other basic bug out stuff. I have a little bit more robust in my survival equipment and my shelter equipment so that I can provide myself a little bit better of a shelter and in case I am out in the woods for a longer duration. I don't plus up my food too much. I have some high calorie, very, very dense calorie protein bars that'll sustain me for a good bit of time, and I have an MRE in there. So I don't go crazy on my food. You can go a long time without food, and I don't want to weigh myself down too much with that. I'd rather carry the supplies. So now back to the question or the statement that I said you don't need a bug out bag. I don't really believe you do, because the inch bag serves as the bug out bag and the inch bag. You could have two, but do you need it? So I spent a good bit of time trying to figure out why would I ever need just a bug out bag. So one reason I would need just a bug out bag would be if I were doing proactive missions, kind of like my days in the military, where it's a 72-hour bag for when I'm going out and coming back, I'm hitting mission type stuff. In the event that I end up in that type, first off, it's not likely as a civilian that I'm going to end up in that scenario, even with a grid down situation, but maybe so. But that would be further along into it, some type of guerrilla warfare type thing. That's further along into it. But if I end up in that situation, even so, I will have time to pack that bug out bag or reduce this bag to those ingredients, if you will, or those specific requirements for whatever I want. It's not something that I'm gonna have to, I've got a quick mission, I've got to run and grab it now. That's not real life. Not in peace times, and not even in immediate collapse times. I'm not gonna fall into missions, so it's unnecessary there. The other time would be if I have to emergency bug out. So that's where the inch bag comes in. As I said, it weighs 32 pounds. That's with the water. I can drop that significantly as a bug out bag. I can drop that down into the teens when I'm dropping it down to just a bug out bag. So where does that come into play? It comes into play if I'm on the ground walking, you know, beating feet with it. So first off, let me say, bugging out is very low on my prepping scenarios. It's not first. Bugging in is first. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. There are scenarios such as a meltdown or, you know, an invasion right up the street. There's scenarios that I would certainly leave my home base, if you will, home. However, even in that situation, bugging out via vehicle comes in before those. And to vehicles specifically, I have vehicle loadout kits as part of my prepping plan as well. So this would still go, but so would the vehicle loadout kits. Now, when could I have to absolutely just bug out on feet? There are situations, you know, some kind of a grid down scenario, EMP, whatever reason, I just don't want the trackability of a vehicle and I decide we're going to go on feet. Then this 32 pounds is a bit of a drawback compared to the teens of a bug out bag. However, I contemplated that situation too. One is I could drop this gear, depending on the time I have at home. I could drop this at the house and reduce its weight and take off. Two, if it's a crisis, you know, we've got hordes coming down the street for some reason, we've got to get out, I can move out pretty fast with that. It's not going to slow me down enough that it's significant. I can move out to a distance and then download the stuff. So I don't want to trek with all that weight for a long time, granted. However, it depends on the environment and, you know, how evasive I have to be. If I can be a little more leisurely, I would like to keep the gear. But if not, if I need to be nimble, then I can drop it, but I can drop it off site. At the end of the day, I don't need both those bags. I've worked through every scenario I can imagine, and I encourage you, if I'm missing something, share it with me in the comments as to why I should have both. So why don't I have both? I have enough gear to have both. However, that's two things to take, you know, to keep up with. It's two bags to keep up with. It's two bags I need to be familiar with, comfortable with, and I'm big on understanding, knowing, and being very comfortable with your gear, and that's thinning out my mental resources, if you will. One bag is better for my purposes and in general scenario and case. So another thing on that, and the way I use this, just to share with you a little bit more on how I use the inch bag. I use it much more in broad terms than I would a bug out bag. Everywhere I travel, if I'm not on, I have a specific thing I use for when I'm traveling by air, you know, commercial air. But everywhere I travel, if I'm traveling away from home, a significant distance at all, this bag goes in our vehicle. So if we break down somewhere well off away from home, I've got this bag, along with a car kit as well. If, you know, one of the worst case scenarios I envision is when I'm away in vehicle on work and an EMP type thing goes out and I am stuck hundreds and hundreds of miles away from home, I still have this bag with me. So it's a multi-purpose bag that serves me both for the bug out purposes, but also a get home bag in that particular situation, because it's a far distance that I'm trying to navigate to get back home. So that's my thought and take on bug out bag versus inch bag. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you call this a bug out bag. That's irrelevant. I just wanted to address that because this term, the inch term and the bug out bag term, have become broadly used, and I don't think, I mean, they are two different things, but I think that an inch bag, if you work your way up to that, takes care of the need for a bug out bag, obviously, as I've posed in this video. Look forward to your thoughts on it and your comments. By all means, please, as I said, if I've missed something, share it, and I'll definitely respond, whether it's an agreement and you make me rethink my position on it, or I have an answer for it that I've just thought of and didn't address here. Thanks for watching, and keep tuning in for more videos on prepper, survival, tactics, and fitness.